A few years ago, there was a quarterback who was seen as the next big thing in college football. He was ranked higher than guys like Kyle McCord, JJ McCarthy, Drake May, Jackson Dart, and Jalen Milroe. He became one of the best quarterbacks in Georgia high school football history, was wanted by every single program in college football, and was expected to go off to the NFL after just 3 quick seasons in college. Sadly, that is not how it has played out for Brock Vandagriff. Not only did he never see the field while he was at Georgia, but in his one season with Kentucky, he was absolutely terrible, and he announced his retirement a couple of days ago. In today's video, we're going to take a look at what happened to Brock Vandagriff. We're going to go through why everybody thought he was the next big thing coming out of high school, what ended up happening at both Georgia and Kentucky, and his unfortunate retirement. I'm going to do a deep dive into his entire story, but before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you want to support today's video, and let me know what player I should do a deep dive on next. And let's go ahead and get started and talk about what happened to Brock Vandagriff. Before we get started with today's video, I want to give you a quick update about the channel and its future. To be honest, I have become a little bit burnt out of college football, as all the negativity and constant nonsense going on in the sport has at times almost drove me away from wanting to make content. But one thing I've always loved doing on the channel is unique topics and videos on deep dives and player backstories. I'm going to be bringing a lot more of those back in 2025, as I'm going to cover a ton of NFL draft prospects. We're going to do a lot more what happened to videos, and I'm also really going to cover a lot of this year's big name transfers. You're going to see a lot more of that on the channel. You're hopefully going to get a lot more unique videos, and as current sports media gets more and more clickbaity and annoying, I'm going to try to bring you guys really quality stuff and unique topics that you will not find anywhere else. I'll also be trying to give my unbiased opinion. And I'm also going to try to organize things better, as I'm going to have playlists for all the different series, and in each video I am also going to put a link down below, and if a user shouts out a topic, they're going to get shouted out in the video. Also, I'm going to start grouping every single video, as not only will today's video about Brock Vandagriff be in my What Happened To playlist, but I'm also going to put it in a playlist for both Kentucky and Georgia. So if you are a Kentucky or a Georgia fan, just go down to the comment section and click those playlist links so you can see more videos I've done on Georgia or Kentucky players or topic. Also, before we start the video, I'm not going to pretend that I have every single detail or fact correct, but I do my absolute best to conglomerate all the useful and most true information from typically about 20 to 30 different articles. The research process for me is rigorous, so if I do make a mistake, be sure to let me know down below, and know that I have no ill intent. Okay, so in order to talk about Brock Vandagriff, we first need to go back in time, and his story starts in Bogart, Georgia. Because of Vandagriff's location and his family, he developed a dream of becoming a star quarterback in the SEC one day. His mother attended Auburn, and Vandagriff grew up a huge fan of the Tigers. His father grew up in Tennessee, and he was a big fan of the Volunteers. Early on, Brock was a big deal, and Greg Vandagriff saw the potential in his son about the time Brock was 10 years old. Greg came from a defensive background, but he figured out quickly that his son, playing flag football in elementary school, was not made for defense. He'd catch up to the guy with the ball, but would not snatch the flag. Instead, he basically escorted the player to the end zone, but passing the ball, he had a natural talent for that. He became a great young quarterback, and his dad was worried about becoming one of those crazy parents that many coaches hate. All the quarterback camps and all the unrealistic expectations was not something that he wanted to be a part of, but as high school approached, he later helped him with film, mechanics, and the early recruiting process. There was apparently a moment in 7th grade when the mental side of the game clicked, and apparently he would always aggravate his younger sisters during breakfast, so his mom made him go with his dad to football practice early, and that would change his life. While at Woodward Academy, he fell in love with the weight room each morning and would actually train with future Georgia running back Elijah Holyfield while he was only a middle schooler. He did take everything very seriously back then because he wanted to achieve big things. Brock said, quote, "It all goes back to the big goal, and the big goal is going to the NFL. Every rep I do in the weight room, every lap I do on the track, that's motivated by that final goal." By the time Brock Vandagriff reached high school, his dad had moved on to be the head coach at Prince Avenue Christian School just outside of Athens. After playing wide receiver as a freshman, Vandagriff started at quarterback for the Wolverines, throwing for 3,200 yards and 28 touchdowns, while running for 1,000 yards and 23 more scores. Miami was the first school to offer him a scholarship, and the Vandagriffs actually knew Mark Richt because he had gone to church at Prince Avenue while he coached at Georgia. At this time now, he was starting to blow up into one of the top players in the nation, and he also had the right mindset to be great. Greg Vandagriff said, quote, He's a terrific competitor. He wants to be good, he wants to win, and he knows none of that comes easy, and none of it's going to come from sitting on your rear. He would get better and better and became both a local and national legend for his insane numbers at Prince Avenue, but one thing was still missing. He was successful and a 5-star, but a state championship was Brock Vandagriff's dream. Neither he nor the Athens area school had won one in any sport, and it was Vandagriff's final chance as a senior playing for his father. Heavily favored in the Class 1A private semifinal, Prince Avenue ended up getting done, beating Trinity Christian, and Vandagriff threw for nearly 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. He said, quote, "This was without a doubt one of the best days of my life. I've dreamed about it for a long time." He was now in elite territory as he became the player of the year, became the state season leader in passing yards and passing touchdowns. He had nearly 4,200 yards with 46 scores, and he surpassed 10,000 yards and 100 passing touchdowns for his career, as at the time only 6 Georgia players had reached both milestones, and Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson were the only others to win state titles. The National Quarterback Club named Vandagriff the National High School Quarterback of the Year, and this came a week after Vandagriff was named Mr. Georgia Football. His career totals were accomplished despite missing 4 games as a junior and playing wide receiver as a freshman. But where was he going to be playing college football? Well, he was known as a runner as a sophomore, which is why he was attracted to Oklahoma, where he committed in June of 2019. He committed to the Sooners over the likes of Auburn, Florida, and Georgia, and it all seemed to be well with him in Oklahoma in the fall of 2019. Shortly before his June 20th commitment to the Sooners, he was named the top overall player in the class of 2021 by Rivals. After spending time with his family over the holidays and the location and time away from those closest to him, it hit him pretty hard. He liked to spend a lot of time on his grandparents' farm in Alabama, and it seemed now he had a decision to make. So what was he going to do? Well, it seemed that Tennessee, Auburn, and Georgia were the top schools for him, and one choice became very clear right away. The running is also what led him back to Georgia, as Oklahoma got Caleb Williams in the end, and after the 2019 season, Coach Kirby Smart and his staff ramped up the recruitment of Vandagriff and emphasized the change that was soon coming to Georgia's offense. That notion was further enhanced when Smart brought in Todd Monken as the offensive coordinator in mid-January. Monken was then hired by the Bulldogs on January 17th, and Vandagriff committed to Georgia on January 21st. This followed a great quarterback pipeline for Kirby, as he had gotten 5-stars Jacob Eason, Justin Fields, Jake Fromm, and then blue chippers like DeJuan Mathis and Carson Beck to also come to campus. This was a major get for Georgia, and everyone was excited to see what he could do down the road. During 2020, Brock was the ringleader of the 2021 class and met with every Georgia signee and tons of big-time recruits. According to 24/7 Sports, Brock was a 5-star recruit, the number 4 quarterback, and the 17th best player in the class of 2017. So, how would he do at Georgia? When he arrived at Georgia, Kirby had immediate praise. He said, quote, "He's not just a pocket guy. He's mobile, he makes good decisions, and he slings the ball really well. While he's also mobile, he's extremely athletic, and he can make all the throws. He also has a good demeanor about him, and he was also one of our key recruiters for this class." So yeah, Kirby thought that he was the next big thing, and in general, everyone was super excited to watch what he would do. Yes, he played poor competition in high school, but many were not concerned about this. He was called Mike Bobo's dream quarterback, but the dream didn't go all that well for Brock at first. In 2021, he literally had 1 throw, and it was an incompletion. In 2022, he had 2 throws, and both of which were incompletions. Going into the 2023 season, Stetson Bennett was fresh off of back-to-back national championships, and he was now finally gone. It would be between Brock Vandagriff and Carson Beck for the starting job. Both of them were highly regarded, and while many wanted Brock, Beck ended up becoming the guy, and once again, he would have to sit on the bench. In 2023, Vandagriff would end up completing 12 of 18 passes for 165 yards and 2 total touchdowns. Ironically, he played the most against Kentucky in 2023, going 5 of 7 for a touchdown. So after 3 years, the blue chip recruit had done absolutely nothing in Athens, and it was now time for him to make a decision. Carson Beck was coming back for another year, and Brock Vandagriff decided to hang it up in Athens and would now put his name into the transfer portal. But where would he end up going? Well, pretty quickly he settled on Kentucky and would commit to head coach Mark Stoops and offensive coordinator Liam Cohen. This was a huge get for Kentucky, and he was going to come in and hopefully replace Devin Leary, who really wasn't all that good, and maybe he'd be like Will Levis was back in 2022. But Brock would have a little bit of competition. Former big-time quarterback from the state and Gavin Wimsatt also transferred in, and they also had Cutter Boley, who was a true freshman, who was also going to try to compete. Vandagriff was expected to be one of the top quarterbacks in the SEC, and while many thought there would be some kinks to work out, no one expected the kind of season that he had. His first game with the Wildcats ended up being his best, as in a 31-0 win over Southern Miss, he threw for 169 yards with 3 touchdowns and an interception. In week 2, things got really bad, as against South Carolina at home, they got blown out 31-6, and Vandagriff literally went 3 of 10 for 30 yards and an interception. He got benched in favor of Gavin Wimsatt at one point, and then he would return the next week as the starter against his former team, Georgia. In what was one of the weirdest games of the season, Georgia only ended up winning 13-12, and Vandagriff ended up throwing for 114 yards. He didn't do anything but be a game manager, and if they had a competent quarterback, maybe they could have pulled off the upset. He didn't have a touchdown against Ohio, but after that he did throw for a season-high 243 yards in a huge upset victory over number 6 Ole Miss. Vandagriff barely did anything, but that was a huge victory for them. But then things would continue to spiral. He had 1 touchdown and a loss to Vanderbilt, 2 interceptions and a blowout loss to Florida, no touchdowns and an interception and a loss to Auburn, and then 1 touchdown and 1 interception and a loss to number 7 Tennessee. He got his final win of the season against Murray State, in which he threw for 2 touchdowns. Then the final game of the 2024 season would come against number 3 Texas, in which Vandagriff went 3 of 7 for 1 touchdown and 1 interception. It was a tough year for him, as he got hurt against Tennessee because of a concussion, and he'd ultimately missed their final game against Louisville. Total, Brock threw for 1,593 yards with 10 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. He didn't run for a score either, and Kentucky missed a bowl game. He never even had 1 decent showing against a competent team, and because of a ton of different factors, we just found out a couple days ago that Brock Vandagriff has decided to retire from college football altogether. This is really devastating news. Kentucky averaged an SEC low 20.6 points per game. He was injured on and off all year, did not have a good completion percentage, was not very mobile, and ultimately, he just didn't have it mentally. I guess maybe the skeptics were right all along, saying that he did not play the best competition in high school, and ultimately, he kind of got rusty sitting on Georgia's bench for 3 years, and then he went into a situation which was somewhat difficult. I definitely feel bad for Brock Vandagriff, and it's sad because at one point, he was seen as the #1 player in his recruiting class, was a surefire hit as a 5-star recruit, and seemingly had the mental intangibles to make it. Again, I'm not really quite sure what happened here, but if you're a Kentucky or Georgia fan, let me know why you think Brock Vandagriff didn't end up working out, and also be sure to let me know what player I should cover in my next video. Also, before you go, if you're a Georgia or Kentucky fan, be sure to check out those playlist links down in the comment section, and all my other videos on the end screen. I hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.